Welcome to this tutorial about setting up reference images for bust modeling. Now, the first thing we need to do is make sure that your front image and your profile image are matching so that everything is aligned. The eyes, the nose, the mouth are at the same scale. Now, I have found an online image editor which allows you to do this for free if you don't have a copy of Photoshop, which can be quite expensive. So load up your front image, and then on top of that set up an overlay image and reduce the opacity. I'm zooming in here so I can see very accurately the position of the profile picture, and I want the nostrils to line up. In this case, I think the front image is tilted back. The head of the subject is tilting back a bit compared to the profile image, so I need to rotate to match. Now I'm satisfied that I've got the profile in exactly the right place. I'm going to just crop off that part that I don't need. It's not very sophisticated, this program, but it allows you to do it for free. So I apply that crop. I'm happy that the eyes and the nose, the mouth, everything is the correct dimensions. And I'll save that profile picture as a new file. I save the front image in the same folder, and we're ready to start setting up the reference images in ZBrush. So I open ZBrush, set up my background to be flat. I want to make a change to the colors, so I just do that by clicking this button here. This makes everything a little bit clearer. Okay, I don't want a shaded background, nice and flat. Keeps things simpler. And so the first thing to do is to bring up a bust of a man, which you can find in the Lightbox tools already supplied. There it is. Now this is very useful as a starting point. You don't have to start from scratch with a sphere, for example. So firstly, I want to toggle on the floor grid and set up the panes which will take the image reference. And then I go to Draw, down to Front Back, import the image of the front, like that. And we should see that image appear straight away behind the subject. There we are. Same again, this time scrolling down to the left-right and import your profile. Like that. And we'll see them both aligned beautifully with the eyes, nose, mouth in the same position on the horizontal plane. Great, so first thing we notice is the images are much larger than the bust. So rather than interfere with the images, which you could do, you could resize, you could move them around, let's instead increase the size of the bust. So let me just show you how the view of the bust changes when you change the fill mode. When you change it to 3, it becomes transparent, which is useful. Now check that you have symmetry on, in this case in the x-axis. Notice with this bust supplied, there's a set of eyes and teeth which are in a separate object, so we need to merge those down so we have one whole object. Just looking at the topology there, you can see this is a nicely topologized bust. But for our purposes, we want to sculpt in Dynamesh so we can make lots of changes without disturbing the geometry. So I'm just going to increase the resolution to about 300. Delete that. Delete the layers, the levels below. And then we must convert it to a Dynamesh object. Don't go too high to begin with. Now it's about 900,000. That's probably a bit high. So I'm going back to, I've got 328,000. Okay, so now I'm going to select scale, and with symmetry on, they should stay in exactly the same position. If you don't have symmetry on, it will scale depending on where you started your selection. So I need to turn off perspective. You see the difference that makes? Now we have an orthographic view and we can really see exactly where the object is in relation to the image plane behind. So I'm looking at the eyes. I want to move it up a bit, but I need to snap using the shift tool, the shift key. Snap and drag it up, and I have the eyes aligned. I think we need to go a bit bigger, so I'll go back to the scale tool and make it larger. I'm snapping the scale and I'm grabbing the end circle to scale in all dimensions. equally. Now we're looking good. Let's have a look at the profile. Okay, now the subject has his head tilted back, as I said before, so I think we have to do the same with our model. So I'm just bringing the head forward slightly. I'm always thinking about the eyes. Overlay the eyes. It's all good from the front. And let's do a small rotation in the profile. If I change the fill mode from 3 back to 2, my model becomes solid. Looking at the profile, let's make this rotation. I'm going back to transparent. Okay, free rotation. I snap the view with the shift key, so it's an orthographic view. Now from the front view, you can see because I've rotated, it's now out of position. So I'm just going to move it back down with the middle circle, snapping with the shift key, and I'm going to make the object aligned again. I'm just going to decrease the scale slightly because the eyes look too wide. I want to get those eyes as accurate as possible in comparison with the image. That seems very good. Now I can change the horizontal offset of the image to be really accurate in relation to the model. I can't move the model if I want to use symmetrical sculpting. I can't move the model in the horizontal axis, so I must move the image. I can move the model up and down, I can rotate, but I have to keep it horizontally fixed. So now we can start sculpting the model. I'm going to take a move tool with quite a large brush size and start to drag, making sure symmetry is on. I can drag those areas with a large move tool, move brush, get the chin, get the lips roughly in place. Looking at the nose, the forehead has to come back a long way. I can see that through the transparency. I need to pull that whole forehead back. Like this. And then just looking around, go to a smaller draw size And then you can pull individual areas like the bottom lip, the upper lip. And this is working in symmetry. Now I'm going to drag that throat area down. Let's just have a look. I'm doing a bit of smoothing of those areas as I go. Now, these ears need to be brought back a good deal using a very large brush. Not so large that it disturbs the face. Now, from the front, I can see that we need to go a lot wider. So I'm just going to pull the face out and down. So the mouth is in a good position. These ears need to come out a lot more. Now, as you know, no real face is totally symmetrical. But in the first stages of sculpting, it's very useful to have symmetry on and to get the positions in general. Later on, we'll turn off symmetry. But you should always be mindful that if you turn symmetry off and you do a lot of work and then you turn symmetry on again, you're going to do some real damage to the work that you've done. So work as long as you can with symmetry on. I'm just going to smooth out some of these very hard edge surfaces. So I'm smoothing. We've got a nice Dynamesh surface, so we can pull it around, carve it, sculpt it, re-Dynamesh. This nose is very pointy. I need to soften that. Now I'm having a look at the nostril here, so I can see through the transparency the nostril must be pulled up a good deal. This lip needs to be realigned. Bring that up. Fixing the chin. Seems to have lost its position somewhat. Okay. I'm going to start to run the video in a fast speed because I'm doing a lot of adjustments here and I'll just talk through them as they're going quickly. So I'm filling that jowl area using a clay build-up brush. I'm always adjusting for the draw size. Now something strange is going on with the lips. I need to fix that. I'm using a move tool. Just trying to align with the image below. Constantly adjusting using the move tool. have a look from a few different angles, and now I've gone back to a solid object. It's no longer transparent. Change that in the brush menu, and in the profile view I've dragged out the reference image so I can see it. Gone back to transparent there, making some adjustments under the nose. The head seems very flat, so I've just pulled the back out. Going back to solid view. Okay, this is another technique which you can use to get absolute positions. I bring in a texture in the spotlight feature. Go to Texture, Spotlight, and you have an overlay with a wheel which you can drag around. If you find the wheel is in the way, just touch away from the wheel and it moves to the side. Now you can still control the image. I'm putting the image in the best possible position, always looking at the eyes. And what I can do is kind of rub. If I rub this image onto my surface using a standard brush, with a low Z intensity, lower your Z intensity to about 9 on a smaller brush, then I can actually get a very accurate position for lines, eye creases. It's not going to look great initially, but it does give me a very good idea of exact positions. I'm taking off symmetry now in order to do this. Now, using this overlay, I'm pulling the sculpture using the move tool. I know it's hard to see what's a sculpture and what's an image, but if you mess around with it, you can get a feel. And then some very fine positioning to be done here. Okay, I can change the opacity of the image to check what's going on. By touching the opacity and dragging the wheel clockwise and anti-clockwise. Spotlight's a very useful facility. I can even sculpt using other brushes like the slash, just to carve in while I've got that image there. I'm not going to do too much with that. Just a few points of interest, lines. and then we'll go back to sculpting. I'm just going to finish off with my spotlight, and then I'm going to turn it off. And there we are. Now if I go into the profile, drag out the horizontal offset, I can continue to sculpt with a view if I bring it quite close, I can really see what areas need to be improved. I'm just using the move tool. And my mouth's a bit of a mess now. I'm using a flatten tool here to take some of these surfaces down. I'm using a clay tool to sculpt, adding and subtracting, starting to work some of those under eye areas, building up around the upper lip, smoothing out that brow, I need to work on the nose again. I need to increase the size of the nostril. Smoothing, carving with the slash brush. I think there was some confusion there between symmetry and non-symmetry. So it's back to non-symmetry. I'm carving by hand, by eye, just comparing. I've pulled the front reference horizontally across. Filling, smoothing. Starting to get a feel for the object. The brow needs to be lifted. I need more nostril. Eyes, nose, mouth, very difficult areas to sculpt. They each present their own problems. I'm just going to smooth out those creases. And I'm going to bring them in again by hand. Now the eyes are very flat, so I will inflate those. I'm just carving some eye bags. I'm reducing a couple of hours work down to a few minutes. So to fix the eyes, what I often do is mask the lids to include a generous area of eyelid, and then I might make a larger mask, and then I might inflate and smooth, making some more move adjustments. Carve those lines back in. The nostrils are not very well defined. I need to open the nostrils up. Using the slash tool. I've re-dynameshed to get my geometry back to a nice form. I'm carving in some lines. Get some definition into that mouth. Work on the lips. Another tool I like is the pinch tool. The pinch brush. Just checking my alignment in the profile again. So I'm not going to finish this sculpture. I'm just showing you the first steps to getting a good likeness of the subject. I need to do a lot more work with the nostrils. It's quite subtle. I'm taking small areas and reducing, carving, adding, moving, slicing, occasional pinching. Get some more expression into those brows. A bit of slashing into the lines. These areas need definition. Now that I want to get more definition, I've increased the poly count to 1.2 million. This gives me the ability to get more detail, and you might increase it further in the final stages, and especially if you want any skin texture. I realized I need to get into that nostril a good bit more. Okay, well, That's the first stage.